Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Power On Podcast Portable. How are you all doing? My name is Sushi B, and of course, with me is the venerable, powerful, wonderful, nomadic. Not really.
Sedentary.
The snot shot.
Lethargic.
That was a good snot shot. Actually, anyways, it's Taylor, otherwise known as Murugoto 553. How's it going, buddy?
It's going well, other than that intro.
It was pretty bad.
That's right.
We've had a little bit of a personal hiatus, not necessarily for these coming out, but personally we have. So I need some time to get back in the swing of things. So I need some spring training. Grapefruit League.
No, but I'm doing all right. I got a little bit of a throat thing. I don't know if I'm going to start developing a cough and hack up a lung shortly after this, but for now, I'm all right.
That's good. Well, hopefully you don't keel over at any point, and if you do,
carry on.
I'll pretend to be you. But no, yeah, hopefully you're feeling a lot better soon.
Yeah, well, for the most part, I'm all right. So,
good.
How about things on your end?
As always, busy, of course, but I tend to like it that way. I'd rather have stuff to do than not. So, yeah. But it was good. We were able to squeeze together what I hope to be a good episode. Very unique.
I think that's the hope every time we turn this on, right?
That's true. Power on podcast, right? Literally power on. So, yeah, this was. I don't know how we're gonna break down this sort of intro here. I think first thing off the bat, though, I want to say is, anyone listening to this, if you want to know nothing about this game, you just stop listening now. I think it's pretty safe to say, Taylor, that we can basically cover anything we want here. Now, I know we normally kind of do, and maybe we kind of say if we have a spoiler or not, but this is a game that's just going to be relatively challenging for most people to get their hands on, I think.
Right. And I think that's kind of why we wanted to do this episode, no?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely part of the reason. The game is Panzer Dragoon Saga. Obviously, from the title of seeing this, but this is a game I purchased personally in 2001, so a little while ago, and I still have the game, obviously, and I've held on to it, not for the sake of I have interest in reselling it for a bunch of cash or anything. I will say I did have to spend, a fair amount at that time. And it's just sort of gotten really obnoxious, unfortunately, because this game, it's not even in that low a print run, honestly. Nobody seems to actually have verified data of how many copies are floating in North America and Europe and Japan. The general consensus seems to be for North America, though, that at least from what I have read, is actually around 40,000 copies, which is a fairly small print run. I mean, that's not big, but it's not so ridiculously small that it commands the prices that it commands, to me anyways. But there's other factors as to why, I think. And long story short, though, I've had this game for a while. It was the first game I bought for my Saturn. I did have to pay a fair amount of money for it. I've held on to it for a reason, and it's not just the cash thing. It's because I actually really like this game. I think it's a really good game, and I'm really saddened that there's basically no way that anyone can play this game without having to spend a bunch of money. In English. Sorry. Let's clarify that.
Well,
in English.
Yeah, that, and I mean, I know you tried to prod me into buying it when I was in Japan, and I just couldn't find it. Yeah. I don't know if it was just because I just would mind blank whenever I would go around looking in retro stores or something, or just, I don't know, just having really, really bad luck with that sort of thing. And I've described it before. I'm not, even with things that are like games or, say going to the Square Enix store to buy a bunch of slimes or something, I don't care for the shopping process whatsoever. Right. So I'm pretty much in and out because I really cannot stand shopping. And so like things like the whole game hunting thing, I don't mind it when people do it and stuff. It can be pretty cool. Just me personally, I'm just like this. It's just not
It's not your thing.
It's just not my thing. And it's just, right. And so, that's just, just kind of what happened to me growing up. It's just like, this is not fun at all. I'm not only wasting my time, even though, to me personally, that's my perception of it. I'm wasting my time, but I'm also spending money.
Right.
And so it's like a double negative. Time is money, so I'm losing money there. And then I'm losing money because I'm buying stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
That's okay. I found the Japanese copy here and there. You're right. You were
in Tokyo, right? Or did you find it in Nagoya?
No. I've stumbled across the Japanese version in North America, in Canada actually. I have stumbled across it a few times in Korea. I've stumbled across it in Taiwan. I've found it. I found the Japanese copy, not regularly, but it's never been sort of so difficult to find. And it's usually in the similar price range.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Is it probably more so a fault on my part than anything else?
But that's the funny thing. I've never found it in Japan, so maybe maybe people do hang on to it in Japan. Maybe the people that do have it don't give it up easily. But when you do find it, you're typically looking at the price range of $25 to $40.
Which is, you couldn't even get a damn page of a manual from the North American version, from what I gather.
Yeah, because people are selling single discs for $200 or $300 and stuff. It's just outrageous. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's really
gross.
Because this is a 4-disc game, and they get off on eBay selling just the first disc
or disc 3 or something.
right. $200-$300. You're like, what the. Really?
Well, the thing is, you cannot play this game without going discs in sequence, obviously. There's no point in buying a single disc. It just doesn't make any sense.
Unless you really want to be left on, cliffhangers to...
Well, if you have disc 1, I guess, because if you have disc 2, 3, and 4, it doesn't matter without disc 1, so...
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what the sort of objective is there when people do that. If it's just sort of, maybe they're looking for the person that has discs 1, 2, and 4, and they have disc 3, so just I'll sell it to you. In that case, just give it to the person. I know you're trying to make a buck off it, but it's just it's a pretty much no value to you. They can't play that. Anyways.
The value is perceived there, so...
No, yeah. Anyways, it's a fairly expensive game to get it in the North American or European region, unfortunately. There's a bunch of reasons. One is the code is apparently lost. The producer had an interview, I believe it was at EGM online, maybe 5 or 6 years ago or something now. Maybe 2008. Maybe it was in 2008, which would have been the 10-year anniversary. And he said, the code is lost. He doesn't know why or where it went. Sega put it somewhere and then it just got destroyed maybe by who knows, whatever reason. And the old team has been broken up a long time ago. The team that made it was Team Andromeda, who went on to become, part of the members went on to become Smilebit. I presume pretty much none of them probably work at Sega now, I guess. It's a long time. It's a long time ago now.
I was about to say, didn't they kind of, some of them got together, was it at the Smilebit and did the Orda?
They did. They did Orda, and they did a few other things. I think they did Gun Valkyrie. They did a few games, but they definitely did Orda, which was a really nice game and still looks gorgeous today on the Xbox, the first Xbox machine. So, but this team was interesting. They didn't do anything other than this series. Yeah, but it's interesting. This team was just devoted specifically to the Panzer world. That's what they did, and that's all they did. And it's kind of interesting.
Which would help with any sort of mythos or, backstory. Because I have never played any of these, the other games in the series. None of them. None, Orda, no, First, no, Zwei, no. So, to me, I was just kind of plopped into, playing Panzer Dragoon Saga. So, to me, all the other stuff that they had done, I can't really, I don't know how much else they had built on it and stuff to be like, that's really peculiar, that's pretty interesting, that's very different kind of stuff. I can only imagine that they have, because of, this game and just being able to concentrate solely on that series, that they were able to kind of, to keep a very continuous and legitimate environment and world of its own.
Right.
I mean, at least you can see that in Saga itself.
Right.
they've made their own world that functions and stuff and isn't just like a cardboard cutout background for the characters to kind of parade in front of.
Right.
Like a lot of games.
There's definite plot threads that are really, really, really loosely tied. I'm really fortunate. I actually do own the other two Saturn games as well. I bought them around that time. So before the Saturn stuff started to really get out of hand in price.
Mm.
So I was really fortunate. I paid actually 20 only for the first game and 60 for the second. So not really unreasonable. Expensive for the second game, but not really deathly expensive. I have no idea what they go for now. I probably don't even want to know. But but it is interesting. And you know, maybe we can get the Japanese copies out to you at some point or whatever if you're interested. But they are shooters. You know, they're on-rail shooters, so there's a sort of path that the game follows, but you're shooting stuff almost like a light gun shooter, a little bit, but sort of like a spaceship shooter as well. So it's cool. It's got like a 360 thing going on, so you can shoot behind and stuff and target and lock on with the dragon's attack and the gun. And so it's cool. And very nice music, very nice atmosphere, and interesting world, but so strange at the same time. There's so much stuff that you just don't learn about because it's just a shooter kind of thing. You can read an instruction manual, a few details, you get some videos, just so much stuff is just left unexplained. And so that it's interesting. There's interesting build up from these two shooters that sort of leave all this, whoa, look at all this stuff that we just left unexplored. And now suddenly the third game's like, and we're making an RPG. It's such a really random transition, but in a lot of ways it's a really cool transition too. It's just, you don't really hear that, oh, we're making a gun shooter or whatever. And it's like, hey, we got this deep in-depth RPG coming out now. So
right.
It doesn't happen too often. So, but yeah. So, well, we touched upon a whole bunch of few little details there. Do you have any idea where you'd like to start here?
No. Well, I mean,
the end.
There's the
so
end.
Much for all those spoilers.
Yeah, that was the hook right there. Which bait and switch. But nah, I mean, I guess just kind of start from the beginning because this is
in the beginning.
I don't want to say cared. That's not the right word for it. It was never on my radar. It was just out of my perception.
Sure.
Of the games that I played and enjoyed and anything. I'd heard a couple people mention it, but that was about it. So I was like, okay, whatever. So this is the very first time that I've gone through this game, and I guess just start from the beginning. It starts off and they're talking this entirely different language.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it sounds legitimate, at least when they're talking. It sounds like it's a foreign language. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, even if it's not, you know, it made up. At least to the ear, it doesn't sound bad. There is a case of this language being spoken that sounds horrid that I'll get to later. But, for the most part, it's pretty convincing. And you're just kind of like, what the fuck is going on at the beginning?
Yeah.
Especially because I have no ground base to base this on or anything. Right. I'm just like, oh, okay, things are happening. And they're speaking something I have no idea. And Edge is the main character's name.
Yeah.
Thank God his last name is not Maverick. Thank you, Star Ocean 4. But,
I take it that this Edge is a little bit better.
He is sort of. I mean, oh no, definitely, because that one's pretty terrible. But he, you know, his what would you call it? His outpost.
Yeah, his outpost.
His outpost gets attacked, and then all of a sudden he starts speaking Japanese, and you're like, what in the hell? Just this is, you know, within the first 10 minutes of the game, kind of thing,
right.
Or so, and you're just like, what the. And, you know, he starts speaking Japanese. He gets blasted into this crevice. You know, not crevice, but is it a crevice?
Cavern.
I
was gonna say cavern, but
yeah, he falls into
a big
this
hole.
Right, and
a pit?
Yeah, there you go. And he's speaking Japanese, and you're roaming around in the dark.
Yeah. And
that's the thing about this game, is that it's got this kind of bleak environment to itself. So it sets the tone with this just very different language, but these also with these grays and these dull browns, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's really trying to hit the point home that you are not in a very exciting place in the sense of vibrancy and thrills and happiness and
bad stuff's gone down at some point.
Right.
But you know what's really cool is we get a lot of games where we're in the post-apocalyptic world, and this has that vibe, but it doesn't at the same time. You know something obviously had to have happened, and that's why there's all this desertification going on, and there's, as you said, there's not lush land and things. There are parts of this game that does have that, but generally speaking,
later on.
Yeah, but generally speaking, you're right. It's sort of, there are waterfalls and stuff, but it's a bit bleak. And one thing I remember reading about the development of the game is they really wanted players to have a sense of loneliness in this game.
Okay.
That was a really important message that they wanted to send through, the character of Edge. And I personally feel that, I mean, honestly, there's not much human interaction in this game for the most part. You don't meet many characters. There's very few people around this world for the most part, and he's sort of on his own a lot of the time.
Right. There's like 3 places where there's an actual good deal of people.
Right.
That you, like 3 main hubs and stuff, and then there's also a few characters that you interact with a lot.
Yeah, a few, more than once at least.
Right. And so I can totally see where that they're trying to convey that loneliness thing, ordeal. The thing is that with a lot of the post-apocalyptic games, with this sort of thing, it almost feels where in those games it's bleak to kind of solidify that everything is boned.
Right.
Kind of thing. This doesn't feel like that. It feels like things are bleak, but the perseverance of the human will is still intact.
Mm-hmm.
And that they, despite giant fucking flying critters that could totally just swallow people whole, they are going to make sure that they pull through despite those kind of difficulties. Right. With that
said, though, there's not many people left at the same time.
Well, but you don't know. Your world map consists of a little rectangle. Like, who knows how much that entails?
Sure.
Did I miss? Like,
no.
Because there's the Empire.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing we don't get much more of what they're never explained really, really deeply. There are some interesting files. I guess we should also mention, because we haven't, you did play the Japanese version, I played the English version, so there might be some translation changes here. But you do get some files. I don't know, did you actually go through any of those, or?
I read a few of them, but I mean, it's a lot of reading. Not in a negative way, but I mean, it's a lot of reading for me to try to remember every single detail.
Okay, because in English, they're pretty short. They're usually only 2 or 3 pages, and in a fairly small text box.
Well, I mean, it's not... I mean, a lot of reading in the sense of there are only a couple pages, but I mean, there's like, you'll get like 6 or 7 different things to read that can be like 2 or 3 pages.
Right.
And so, I mean, there's certain things like with really early on, there was that captain.
Yeah.
You find his diary.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting because I don't know how they did it in English, but in the Japanese one, he's writing all in hiragana and like the loose like lettering of Japanese, and he says he gets a tutor and he starts writing more things in kanji and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a clever way to.
That's actually interesting. Not
right.
Not at all. In English, it's just
the
text is there.
Well, I didn't know if
that's pretty cool, actually. That's actually really neat.
Yeah, so, I mean, he talks a little bit about the Empire, but not
much.
Right, I mean, you do get different little...
Talks a little bit more about Edge, actually.
Right. About,
he kind of views him as his son, almost, and he wants the best for him and stuff, which is, again, that's a bit of a loneliness feel of it, too. Where's Edge's family? What happened to his parents? What happened to any family he may have had, or whatnot? Right. Was he just found by the Empire, or what? But I guess we might get some of those details as we go on. Okay. So, anyways, we progress from there. We get a few little tidbits early on in the game, too, of some of the major players. Within, the first 10 minutes is actually a fairly long cutscene.
Right.
which I'm sure at the time was probably pretty impressive. Honestly, now it's not really bad or anything, but it's
just
obviously
dated.
aged. It's dated, so
It's very dated.
it still runs fairly smoothly, but it's got lots of little graininess to it and can be a little choppy and stuff. But it's fine. I think I told you beforehand too. That's partly why the game is 4 discs, because this isn't actually a very long game. It's just that it's got voice work for just about everybody in the game, which at the time would have been a big deal. Now we just, whatever, we're like, every game has that, right? But
and for the most part, they're pretty good. I mean, it's like they talk normally for the most part. And there's one example of one that doesn't, that just grinds the hell out of me.
Who's that?
It's at the end of the game. It's in the credits, and I'll refer back to it later.
Sure.
And I'll just keep on bringing it up so I don't forget.
Sure, that's fine.
But I mean, they like I don't know if they call him the same, but Gash, is it Gash?
Yeah.
Okay. He's really like, I actually like how he talks. He talks straight up normal, and he's not like this. He's
Fake
not kooky or anything. He's just like, this is what's going on, sort of,
right?
kind of thing.
He kind of has an idea, not a whole idea, but he's got an idea.
So, and he's just kind of, he talks very normal. That's not this crazy, like, goofy voice. I guess there are a couple other people who have goofy voices and stuff, but the for the most part, just the people in the town or the caravan or so there's these people called the Seeker. Yeah. And eventually you go to their, would you call it the hideout?
Oh yeah,
Is that how they refer to it, as the hideout? Okay. Yeah. And so you go there and there's people there, and for the most part, I would say 95% of them, maybe 95% of them sound really, really good for voice acting.
That's good, because, one thing to note is the English translated version, they just kept all the Japanese voice work, and they included the subtitles at the bottom. So, it's kind of interesting. It actually works really well in this game. I don't know if I could really see this game, and I'm not one of those people that's really, it had to be in Japanese or it has to be in English. I don't really care. If it's done well, it's done well. And, I was fine. I was totally fine just playing the game with the voices as they were. It's cool. There's no big deal. It kind of adds a nice little mystique from an English speaking perspective to the game, which it already has, but it just gives it that little bit more. Now I know for you, it's not going to be so much, but if you don't know Japanese,
right? And I kind of wonder, right? I kind of wonder if that might have helped make it seem even more of its own kind of thing, even though it is in Japanese. It makes it seem even more foreign to you just because it is in Japanese. It'd be like if they spoke it in German or something.
Sure.
To me, it'd be kind of like, oh, that's really kind of nifty, because it's something I don't understand, and so it builds an extra layer of foreignness. So.
Sure. All right. Why don't we just continue on a little bit more with the story before we move off of that? So, also at the beginning, we obviously get introduced into our dragon.
Dragon.
Who's just dragon, right? I mean, you can name it. You can name the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is it? Are you able to just go to end and go to like a default? Does it give you a default name? I think you just called dragon, right? When it starts.
No, I think it was end. End was I think it came up as that as the initial name for it.
Okay, I think the English one said dragon, if I remember. I changed it, so I think I changed it to dragoon or something instead. I was just like, whatever. I just barely changed it or something. Not that that's it.
Paella.
Yeah, or I don't know. Could have called him a Deathbringer.
Right.
Could have called him any number of names, I suppose. We also get introduced to perhaps the most important character, Azael. How do you pronounce the name?
I would say Azael.
Azael? Okay. Arguably the most important character. I mean, we see the world through Edge's eyes, but she's the key to everything that's going on.
Cog to move the wheel.
Sure, she's the one in the promotional artwork for a reason. She's, in the logo for a reason. Interesting character. Well, we might get into the characters a bit more, so let's just stick with the story, I guess, for the moment. We do get introduced to some more of the Empire and a faction of the Empire, featuring our good buddy, Kramen.
Yeah.
So, this sort of, I don't know what rank he is. Do they mention what rank he is? Is he a general?
I don't remember.
I know, he's a higher up rank of some kind in the Empire's Air Force, military, and he's broken off and he's got his sort of little team of people that are willing to do whatever it takes to follow his orders, and he's got these objectives that he wants to play out. And there's still a couple characters, but one aspect of this game that's always been a mystery in this whole Panzer world is the ancients. And we get more tidbits than any other game in the series about what they were all about, what they thought they were trying to create and stuff, but still there's no ultimate answers in this. But basically the ancients seem to just have been an old civilization that had tons of power, corruption occurred, and they got overrun, basically. That's the gist of it. I mean, is there anything you want to add to that, or correct me on? I mean,
that sounds about right.
They build these towers. There's
right,
towers
they have
that are
them
around
in
these
their,
worlds.
They're supposed to, if they're supposed to be there to kind of set them a certain way.
Right.
So that they're kind of guided into this path of doing this. They're kind of like the ultimate, like, helicopter parent.
They're kind of the opposite of the Seekers. They're kind of the keepers in a way. And they set up, I would say that, set up shop with these black towers. Every game in this series has got black tower of some kind. I don't think it's the same tower. I believe they're different towers, but so this, they're basically death factories. We'll kind of get into that as we talk about some of the characters and stuff. Basically death factories. They're apocalypse makers. I don't know what else to call them, basically, but yeah. All right. Why don't we go to characters, unless you have another route you'd like to take?
No, the character's fine.
Cool. Let's do that really quick. So we've definitely talked about a bunch of them already. We got Azael, who, again, key focal point. Human, but not.
Just to say, she was referred to as a drone.
Right.
Okay. So,
but
kind of, I don't know, what the hell's the one the dude from Alien that was like the android?
Bishop?
Is his name Bishop?
Oh, Bishop's the second. Aliens. Who's the first? Wow, you had to ask.
Okay, we'll go with Bishop. Okay.
Bishop's the second.
Well, that's fine. Then kind of like that, I'd imagine, no? Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of, this androidish.
Data from Star Trek The Next Generation, sort of like that,
Sort of, yeah. Kind of, yeah.
But she doesn't. Okay, she has a secondary agenda, but she doesn't want to enforce her will to do that agenda.
Right. Following Asimov's rules. Can't be buggering with humans.
Right.
If it's against the Prime Directive.
Right. She's been, I don't know. She's supposed to have this objective, but and she's following it out. She gets convinced by Kramen, who believes that she is the key to basically vanquishing what's left of this world to rebuild it.
Right.
Sort of in an apocalypse fashion, but I don't think that's his I don't think that's his ultimate goal. Like, I think he thinks that she will sort of wipe clean the filth, if you will, of what's left in this world, but he would still be there. The people that are kind of the elite might still be there.
Right.
I think he has that idea that he would survive, and X amount of people might survive, but the people that are corrupt and all this would be gone. But doesn't play out so well for him ultimately. But he's an interesting character because he's, at least at the start, he's a focal point because Edge feels he needs to get revenge against this guy for killing all of his outpost mates.
Right.
And then you get this really interesting dichotomy of, he gets to Kramen later on in the game and he's thinking, I gotta kill this guy. And he's almost starting to make sense to him. Edge is sort of questioning, He knows information that Edge doesn't know. And he also, it doesn't help that Edge is sort of torn. He wants to get revenge, but now he's starting to see he's not necessarily wrong because he's getting details from people such as Gash and just from other sources. So, and he's starting to piece all these things together and think, okay, Kramen's got an idea here that's not totally worth killing him over, but he still doesn't buy into it completely too. It's just a lot of complexity. And what's interesting for me is not that much is actually said generally. They don't have these huge, long, emotion-swilled dialogues going on. Yeah, Crayman has a couple of points where he says a few things that are, fairly long-winded, but it's not like that. It's a lot more, he says a couple of things and then Edge just sort of witnesses it happening. So that's what sort of gets him to buy into what Crayman says. It doesn't help that Azael is also sort of saying, I'm his protector. He rescued me. She doesn't really see, and Edge is sort of like, no, he's using you. And she's like, no, he rescued me. I would be still trapped in that prison. I would never get out. He gave me life, basically. So a really interesting back and forth there.
And then it goes away.
But, I think there's only a couple other characters we're sort of missing out.
Pate. His name's like, Pyatt and his dad. His dad.
I love Vyman. He's probably my favorite character.
I think it's his voice actor that grinds the hell out of me. Oh, okay. One of the kind of the older, I was just like, oh, that's so
sages or something.
It was one of those just really bad old person talk kind of thing.
I think that's probably very much on purpose.
It was painful.
You're supposed to just despise Vyman. So he makes it very easy to despise him, right? Like he's just not
right.
He's not the kind of guy you want to meet. His son says the perfect line of it. He's like, don't trust him. He's a politician. So. And he's got his own means. He thinks that he can use the dragon to fight off Crayman, to fight off the Empire and protect, his little, if you will, kingdom. It's not, but his little thing he's got going for himself, which is the village of Zoa.
Right. And he even tries to, get Edge into it by becoming the protector of Zoa.
Right. And he hasn't really offered him much in return. He says, I'll give you all the information you want about the tower, about the ancients. Edge gets some stuff out of it, I suppose, but not that much.
Well, you have that scene in the church, in the back room of the church where there's that obelisk thing.
Right. That's the biggest piece he certainly gets.
Right. So, but it's... Yeah, he's a dick.
He's a complete dick. But he gets what's coming to him. I mean, we're talking about spoilers. We can just say it. His whole fucking village gets wiped off the map.
Wiped out. And you get fucking guilt-tripped that, man, you were the protector. What the fuck, man? It's like, Jesus, a giant ship came out and just blasted it. Sorry that my dragon doesn't have, infinite shield powers there to just stop giant laser beams from, ripping up the ground and just wiping out a whole fucking town.
Unfortunately, Taylor, that argument doesn't work because later on that thing tries to shoot the dragon and the dragon's just like, fuck you.
Right, well, yeah.
But Edge doesn't know that at first. So.
Right. Well, that's the thing, though. It's at that point in time, it's not like he knew.
Right.
It's not like, oh, yeah, I can totally do this.
Most of the people in that town were scumbags anyways. At least on half of the town. Half of it was full of jerks, and then the other half was, people just trying to make a living, basically.
Right.
Merchants and blacksmiths and stuff. So, and even then, there's not many people in that village, right? On either side. Again, a bit of the loneliness, I guess. There's just a few people just trying to make ends meet. That's
pretty much it.
Yeah, for characters at least, yeah.
For the main character players there.
Yeah.
So.
Not many more there to go off of. Is there anything you want to still touch upon there?
For characters? No.
Or story, or whatever, either or.
No, I think we can kind of push along and then kind of come back to it.
Sure.
I'd say.
Sure.
So.
Cool. Which direction then?
We should probably talk about, the whole, battle part of this RPG.
Sure.
And how you have a dragon that you ride on.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I don't like using this saying, it's so different than everything else. It is. There's parts of it that are obviously offshoots of other games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you want to take a stab at this, and I'll just sort of.
Sure. Because this is I didn't before playing it and stuff. I really had no idea how it worked or anything like that, and I never watched video on the game or anything.
Which is probably the best way to go in.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, but I mean, if you can't help it, or, as I said earlier.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I agree.
Right. So,
if you can go in blind.
Right. And that's usually how I like to do games as a general rule of thumb, is be as blind to it as possible, and then get to it, and then try to enjoy it in its purest, holiest form, kind of thing. And,
taste the succulence of
of
its virginity.
Forbidden fruit. Oh, that's gross. That's so gross. Oh, Jesus. Now that you've totally
soiled this podcast.
Yes. But so when you get these random encounters on these sections of the world map that you go to. So you have a world map, but you go to these points, and then you go into them, and they're these different areas. Some of them are these long stretches of, do you call them valleys? Like at the beginning of the game, is that like a valley? Would you say?
Yeah, I think the actual title when you go to the map is I think first it's like above the excavation site, and then it says valley, I think.
Okay. And you have a desert, you've got a few different oceans. Yep. Or seas.
There's some sort of lakes and waterfalls.
Right. Well, I meant like in other areas. There's a few different areas. You got a giant expanse of forest. Yep. Woods, trees.
Just burning to the ground.
Right.
That kind of cool area, actually, when it's like that. Different.
And so there's different areas, and you'll have random encounters. And in the random encounters, you come across very different types of monsters. Sure. There's they are different. They are not of this earth. A lot of the times. A lot of them are very out there. Right. And so you have four different quadrants, like a north quadrant, south quadrant, westernly quadrant, and an easternly quadrant.
Yes.
That you're flying in to fight this enemy, and the enemies, most of them are flying as well, and so they have, the quadrants are colored so that if it's green, if that quadrant's green, that's like a safe zone.
Right.
And if they're just transparent, it's like you'll get normal damage to you and stuff, and it's not too horrible. Right. Then if you're in the red, that's like a danger zone, and you can get ailments, you can get damaged fairly badly. It's not a good place to be.
Not usually.
Right.
There can also be gray zones, meaning you can't fly in those areas.
Right. So sometimes you're forced to only be in 3 areas.
Or 2 or something, yeah.
Or 2, right. And so you have a 3-bar charge up. So
sort of the active time battle.
Right.
Similar to like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy, that kind of thing.
Right.
You get
and
3 this time, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, 3 of them. Right. And so you can just let one fill up and do an attack. You have like 2 different types of attacks. You have a shot attack from Edge, right, and then the laser from the Dragon. And some of the enemies are anti-shot, so you have to use laser. Some of them are anti-laser, so you have to use shot. And you can buy different things to upgrade or change the shot. And then your Dragon, after you level up, during usually not usually, but like after like specific fights and stuff, you get this like an upgraded Dragon kind of thing. And the laser becomes more powerful. You level up, typical like experience points kind of thing.
And fast actually too.
Yeah, you can level up pretty quickly in the game. And so the best way, because I wrote it down, I was like, the best way to kind of describe it is that enemies are like fluid puzzles to solve. You're trying, especially for me, since the first time seeing a lot of these freaky things, you're trying to figure out what the hell works, what doesn't work, as well as trying to move in certain locations so you don't get blasted by enemies.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I thought of them, is that a lot of them are these little mini puzzles that once you figure out how to solve, you can beat them as quickly as possible. And in doing so, you get an excellent rating. And there's, I think, 6, 7 different ratings. There's like excellent, good fight,
close call,
hard fight.
Yep.
There's a couple I'm missing, but if you do really well, you can, odds are you'll get an item from doing it.
Yeah, I think almost always on excellent you can get it. Not always, but almost always you can get. And then very good, it might depend on what kind of battle it was. But
yeah. So, I mean, it is an incentive to figuring out what to do as quickly as possible instead of just bashing your head against the wall and just attack. And you also get you have a BP. I can't remember. What did the B stand for?
Berserker points? Berserk points?
Berserk points. And so you use those as almost like the magic in a way. It's more than just that. You can heal, you can use super attacks.
Right.
Super spells in a way.
Right. It is magic, basically. It substituted as magic.
Yeah,
there's a few things that are, but idea
because
is
it's
that
four different classes. There's like the attacker, defense, the spiritual, and the agility.
Right.
But
you don't get that at the start of the game.
Right. It progressively adds more and more and more as you're going on. And odds are, it's cool to have see the variation and everything, but I kind of stuck to doing mostly using the sweet attacker stuff.
I'm not surprised. You love to beat things down, so.
Well, no, I like the laser. There's like this one laser lightning attack that just rips through them.
Which one is that? Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. So that, and also there's one that you can learn I think it's about 50 BP, and it's part of I want to say it's part of the agility, but it's you absorb the hits and then spit it back out as a counter.
Nice.
I really like that one because then you can even if it doesn't do damage to the enemy for whatever reason, you're not taking damage. So,
right.
But there's a lot of different things about it, and
there's a lot of little factors here and there that you have to. And the thing is, even though when you're just saying it, you're thinking, "Oh, wow, there's a ton of things you have to sort of manage." It doesn't feel as though it's some sort of chore doing it. You do have to manage a few things and move around.
I will argue about that, though. That I do have to say is I think a bit, like, while it's a really different, I found a lot of the times, especially with the bosses, I was just doing the same damn thing. With some of the enemies too, because you're trying to fly into an area to avoid getting hit or something.
Right.
And I would get to a point where I could kind of cheese not a lot of, but like definitely some of the enemies into moving to a spot and then having them move as a result of, like, as a reaction to me moving.
Right.
And so when they're moving, your AP bar will fill up. If you're moving, it won't.
Right.
So what I would do is I would move, and then they would move, and then my AP bar would fill up, and so I kind of would
blast them.
Right. And that to me kind of sucked, I'll be honest, because it didn't feel like I was doing anything to merit I felt like I was cheating the system, and that bad on my part, I know, but
no, I mean that was put in place obviously for a reason by the developers, and I think the reason is it's sort of the sense that when your dragon's moving, that's all it can focus on. But when you're not moving, but the enemies are moving, your dragon can focus on sort of healing its attack time. I think that's what the idea is supposed to be there. So you're not cheating because that's part of the game system. That's a big part of it. Once you know.
I know. I understand, but I mean, it feels less like, as I mentioned, fluid puzzles, because you are still kind of figuring out certain ways to take out enemies, but in the same hand, some of the danger involved with that, like there's some of because you fight Azelle a few times.
Yeah.
And there's the last two fights that you have with her are boring. They're so damn boring because you basically, especially the last, like the one, because because the southerly quadrant goes red, you move in the way, and then you move out real quick, and then she does the super lasers. No. The other one. No, the one where her dragon's like got the super wings and it just kind of shoots out. Not the Nedai. But, I mean, that as well, I mean, some of her, like the battles with her just kind of really dragged for me. And it was, I think that's part of the problem, is that while it is really cool, for at least, half the game or so, as it progressed, until you become super damningly strong, it feels like a chore at times. I'll be honest. It really felt like a chore. Cause I'm just like, man, I feel like I'm rinse and repeating doing the same thing.
Mm.
And there's what the hell is that? Like the excavator, or the, you know what I'm talking about? The machine that you have to fight, where on one of the quadrants you move up and you kind of like fly up above it
to the green zone.
Right. It's constantly green.
Yeah.
That fight, I think broke my brain because it was just so repetitive. And I know you can knock on me saying repetitive for a game, but in the sense that you are really doing the same thing over and over, and it felt like a chore.
Mm-hmm.
And there's times in this game that sort of thing felt like a chore to me, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could see that battle for sure. I think that battle could have definitely benefited from some sort of other transformation, because I think it changes twice, right? You fight it sort of one way, and then that green zone appears after, doesn't it?
I think so.
I'm a little.
I could be wrong. I could have swore it stayed that way for the most part, and then you had to just keep on hammering it.
Yeah.
But I mean, for example, there's a boss fight much earlier on when you first kind of encounter Azel, and that you have actually no dragon.
Right.
And you're on, as my dad called it, a space penis.
Okay.
I don't know why. The floater. But there's the boss there. That was kind of, that's different, because you have these enemies pop, there's the enemies on the ceiling, you can't reach the ceiling.
Right.
And so you have to figure out how the fuck to hit the thing.
Right.
Okay. That it is more in line to what I enjoyed out of it than what became of it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But for the most part, this is a fairly easy game. Regardless of your saying some of them were too repetitive and stuff. Generally, it is a pretty easy game.
Right.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I personally don't find it quite as boring as I suppose you did. There are definitely times where the game has its long spurts, and now this could be due to programming. This could have been due to schedule time that they had to develop the game. I don't know, but there's definitely certain zones of the game where you don't really encounter a bunch of different enemies. You do keep getting the same kind of pack of enemies. And so I presumed it was probably limited space on the disc was probably part of one thing, I guess. I guess. So they just had to kind of rinse and repeat. And thankfully, not ton of random encounters, though, as well. I think this game...
there's times
you get a few, but it's not really bad. Like, to the point
it's not Dragon Quest 1 bad.
Well, or Breath of Fire 3 or Skies of Arcadia or some bullshit like that. For the most part, they do give you a lot of chance to just, okay, we realize this is a long part, you gotta fly the dragon, we're not gonna give you too many battles here. But then, yeah, for sure, there's parts where you get quite a few. But, that one excavator thing you're talking about, I don't mind that battle. I think one thing is, you're right, it can be boring. It depends how you approach this game. Because you have those abilities to change the dragon's class, which ding ding ding, we're going to do a 10 degrees of Taylor in about 30 seconds. It can really depend on how you approach battles. Right, you can have it be repetitive, and most players won't want to challenge themselves in that way, but somebody who has played the game might be like, I'm going to try something different here and try to screw around with it. Go with the defensive dragon, or go with only the agile dragon, or whatever. It could be what they were going for, I don't know. Personally,
I forgot to mention that.
What's that?
That we meant that there's 4 different
you did. You mentioned it.
No. 4 different. There's 4 different parameters that you can adjust on the fly.
Right.
Sort of.
That could have been handled a little better.
Right. I mean, they just kind of say, okay, you can do it. And that's it.
Right.
You can be like, all right, I'll just leave it at 100. For all of them, because when you add to the attack, you decrease the speed, is it? Or the spiritual?
That's a good question. Which one is it?
And I think the defense is with agility.
Well, because you have attack and defense on the top, left and right, and then you have agility bottom left, and spirituality on the bottom, or spiritual on the bottom right. So yeah, defense and spirit on the right hand side, and then attack and agility on the left. Now I'm sort of like you. I kind of go full on agility and attack, because the agility, that time bar is just, it's gone.
Right, right.
And then you've got this huge frickin' spear for a nose thing on the dragon, and this giant laser comes out, and there's like red laser beams when you get like a high level, because you have the big attack power on it. It looks pretty cool. But yeah, I think it just depends how you approach the game. I presume that's partly what they wanted, but I think most players will get into a comfort zone and just get into a rhythm, and then, as you said, might just kind of get boring. So, whose fault is it there? I don't know. Should they have probably challenged players a bit more? Yes, they probably should have. But maybe their mentality was, hey, you can also challenge yourself as much as you want, kind of thing, I suppose. I mean, personally, I like to use, because you can get a few sort of very high level powers if you lean your dragon to one of those 4 attributes. You can get a sort of, in your berserk list, you get these no cost, like extra powers if you get 3 bars full. And I always go for that full agility one, which is, I forget what it's called, but it gives you, those bars just go like mad. They're just fill up really fast. So, it's really beneficial to take that one and then, maybe go for something else after.
Right. So. And I would do say that most of the different dragon forms have their, when you adjust their attack or the defense and whatnot, it will change forms.
Right.
Kind of. So that's kind of cool.
You mean the actual look of the dragon?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's, I think 2 of them don't.
No, they all do. They all do.
I didn't think the 7th one did.
The very last one?
The second to last one.
The Lightwing?
Yeah. I don't think Lightwing.
The Lightwing does.
Does it?
Yeah, the Lightwing all changed. The Lightwing kind of looks really funky. It's got the large, wide out wings and the short snake.
Right, but I mean,
that one
when
changes.
You change really? I didn't think it changed when you change, like it changed his attack and stuff. I thought it looked the same.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it changes. It's the very final one that doesn't change, if I remember. The Solo Wing, which is like the last, the hardest, not hard to get really, but it's like the final sequence. And when you say time consuming, it's really not like,
well,
I know. Punch in 50 hours or something. It's like 2 hours.
Well, no, right.
2 to 3.
I mean, in the sense that you're actively having to like search through nooks and crannies.
Yeah, a little bit. And generally speaking, this game is not that hard to do that sort of thing. It's not Dragon Quest where you're going through every pot and every cupboard and every.
You're not looking for small medals everywhere.
Right.
So.
But I do want to do the quick 10 degrees of Taylor for you. I have a general idea of what you're going to go for. There are those 5 attributes. We've said attack, spiritual, defense, and agility. And then there's a 5th, which is just the normal one, which sort of balances out everything. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on, let's say, the usefulness of each one. Maybe how often you used it, what you thought the usefulness of it was, and could be the 3rd factor. The coolness of each dragon, like the look of each one. As silly as that one is, it doesn't really factor in that much, but if you like the cosmetic aspect of it, I guess it does. But
that's a whole lot there.
Kind of.
Because there's like...
Well, we're not going to do all of them. Let's just yeah, because it'll take forever to do each type of wing. Let's just take those 5 attributes and then sort of base it on the generic look of each one and feel of each one. So let's start with normal wing.
The normal... I use this a lot just to kind of see what it would feel like for battles and everything, to not rock the boat, just to see how, if you kept things at this normal point, to see how everything else kind of felt towards it and everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's the balanced form, so.
Right. But I mean, in doing so, you kind of get what I was mentioning before, is that you don't really exceed at anything, so you're going to kind of slosh around and take some time with a lot of these fights, particularly as the game kind of goes on.
Sure.
You're kind of like, I think you bring up that they could have done a better job. I don't think that it's not that they should have done a better job, it's that, is that if you do take a very balanced approach, be prepared to not whip through things quickly.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it will take it some time.
Yeah. But the normal wing does have a nice advantage in that each of these wings, or each of these attributes, if you have them leaning towards one of them, when you do have 3 full gauges, you will get a kind of advantage. And the normal wing's advantage is that the dragon automatically heals.
Right.
After, I don't know, 3 seconds or something? It gets X amount of points back, which is actually really nice.
Yeah, it's pretty quick, and it's you're like, okay, woo, and yeah, if you are in danger of like health issues and stuff, then this sort of thing really kind of helps.
Yeah, it can be really useful. So what's your little number there for the normal?
I'd probably give it like a 7.5.
I hate doing these 10 degrees of Taylors because I always feel like you're just stealing my number before I say it. I'm going to go 7.5 as well. I've gone back and listened to some of these and it's like, that bastard. I'm going to say the numbers first from now on. Slant your opinion. But it is called the 10 degrees of Taylor, so I'm supposed to just
So maybe you're just like
stealing off of me. Maybe. I'm just supposed to support you and sort of give my opinion when I feel like it, I guess. So it's all about you. It's always all about you, Bill.
Sweet. I feel great.
Awesome. Let's try, for me, a little bit of a tough one. The spiritual.
Yeah, I really didn't care for this one very much.
Yeah, I would presume most players won't lean into this attribute very often.
I don't know. There's just something.
I mean, it's weak. It doesn't attack well, right? I mean,
right.
There are advantages to using it. Of course there are, but there's one battle in particular that it's almost necessary to use. But for the most part, you don't really need it. But it does have a nice thing too. With the full 3 gauges, you do get the BP points back.
BP goes up, right.
Which is really good because you might be spending tons of those, and then you get into one of these just really basic battles where you're just kind of hanging on and just kind of circling around some enemy into the green zone and letting that build up. It can be really helpful. So
right, but that to me is it's just it drags.
Oh yeah, it's time consuming. Sure it is. I've certainly done it in the game if I don't have items or something.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand in that regard, but it just drags. And while the benefit of having additional BP or like a BP charging up there, what I usually do, and this is just how I am with a lot of RPGs, particularly because the original Final Fantasy kind of broke me to doing that, is that I try my damnedest to save those sorts of things.
I do too.
Because I mean, in the original Final Fantasy, it went by I think it went by like D&D rules with magic and stuff like that. So you only had so much of it.
Something. Right,
up to 8, and so it was precious. You couldn't use it. Can't waste it.
I'm kind of like you. When I play RPGs, doesn't matter what it is. I wasn't necessarily broken in on Final Fantasy. That was maybe my 3rd or 4th RPG, but I was Dragon Quest, so it was still pretty precious in that game too.
Right.
So I'm used to just okay, we gotta start clubbing things here.
Right.
When I'm in big danger, then I can do that. But this game sort of I see what you're saying too, where you're like, it's precious and stuff. But if you do use it, you can get it back, which is cool. You don't have to leave the zone. You can just sort of be like, okay, I'll just fight this stupid enemy. Yeah, it's time consuming, but ultimately it would probably cost you just as much time to go out and come back in. So it's up to you. Anyways, the spiritual.
I'd give this like a 3.
Okay, I don't think it's quite that bad. I'd give it like a 5 because of the ability to recharge your BP points. So. And it's actually good too if you do want to heal. You could quickly slide onto that attribute, use the heal, you get extra healing points out of it because it's on the spiritual mode. So there's definite advantages to it, but it's a tough one to use. All right, let's go on to actually what do you want to call there? What do you still got 3 left?
Let's do the agility one.
Sure.
So this is of course nice. I because it goes hand in hand with defense.
Right.
No,
it goes with the attack.
Is it with the attack?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm 1000%. Attack is touching the same side as defense, and agility is on the opposite end of defense.
Well, for some reason I was thinking agility and defense were the two that if you
spiritual and defense go together. Attack and agility are on the other side.
Of other games, I guess. Because a lot of other games do that.
This game it wants you to get in there and bust some skulls. It's like, we're doing it fast and we're killing them with, full power kind of thing. That's your style, man.
You've confused me. You've confused me. Like, I mean, hand in hand is that if you increase your agility, you go down in defense.
Yes, you go down in defense, yes.
That's what I was, that's what
I thought you meant that they go together as in...
hand in hand in that they have that symbiotic relationship that if you increase okay.
Now we're on the same page again.
Now we are decomposed. So, yeah, and so this, if you leave it the same, if you leave it at 100, it's still not terribly slow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay.
Cool. But I mean, you bolster that, B, man, it's fantastic.
You fly.
You fly. I mean, I think it's so quick, and as I say, speed kills kind of thing, and I mean, you're sacrificing defense, but if you play your cards right, it's not such a big deal.
Right.
You're
usually pretty good shape.
Right, and it's not a damningly hard game, so I mean it allows you to kind of be able to do that sort of thing without too many issues. So I really like it in that regard. I don't quite remember what it would do with the agility thing, to be honest.
It's actually really useful. What the agility does 3 full bars, it reduces or just eliminates all status effects. It's actually extremely useful later on in the game.
Right, when you're getting nailed by all sorts of lovely
pains. Oh yeah, and there's some kind of annoying status attacks in this game. But when you have that on, they're bombing you and they're like, "Hey, you got pain," and you're just like, "Got agility," and then it just instantly heals as long as you have 3 full bars. So it's really good.
So. I'd probably put it at like a 8 because of that really just the quickness of the fill up of the bars and stuff that helps a lot, like an 8.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna go 9. This is my personal favorite, is to use the agility a lot. I don't mind the color scheme. It's usually a lot of purples and deep reds. That's not my favorite, but it looks fine. But it's just the speed is so beneficial in this game. And I like that bonus of getting rid of status effects is just awesome to me. Like, I can't think of any games that really do that other than having to cast spells on yourself or something. So I really, really think you get a huge advantage having that on. The bars feel quick. You don't really have to worry about negative effects on your dragon. You can channel it with attack. You can do really well with it. So I'm going 9. One thing we have to say is that circle gauge where you can move all the attributes is, as you mentioned, that it does adjust. If you do go one route, then the other one goes down. But it's still cool because you can, just as much as you want. I still want some little bit of defense. You don't have to go all the way to move into that attribute zone. Like, you can just sort of start to touch it and it'll say agility, but you can still have a decent amount of defense. Or, as you said, you can go full on and going 200 and just go all the way.
It is a little, it's a little, what's the word I want to use? Shoot. You've got to have a deft touch with it because...
Yeah, it's a little sensitive.
There you go. It's sensitive, yeah, because you can start to do it one way and then you want to hit it around a certain number, but it's...
But I think you don't have to... I think that's just in our monkey brains. It's like, it has to be exactly 150, but it doesn't. If it's like 152, it doesn't really make a difference.
Well, right, but I mean, but if you're really, for whatever reason, feeling like you want to put it around, 70, and here you are. Oh, it's at now, 64. Oh, and now it's at 78.
No, I don't think it's quite that sensitive. I think you can get closer to 70 without it jumping like 10 points, but.
It's pretty damn. At least I thought it was pretty damn sensitive.
I just don't think you have the touch.
Stone hands.
You just don't have the touch, Taylor.
Stone thumbs. That's what they call me, Taylor. Stone thumbs.
Oh.
Right.
You must do well on bowling night, right? All right, so I think we have 2 left, right? Let's try to burn through these quick. Let's do defense.
Okay, defense.
Get that big old tail there on the dragon. Hey, get that huge sort of...
Yeah.
He gets kind of stocky. He gets kind of fat and stocky.
Kind of like the light greens.
Light greens, yellows.
Yeah. I never used this, to be honest.
I used it, but unfortunately, it's not as useful as you might think it would be.
Okay, well, because I mean, even at the balanced, there was no like real fear of, oh, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there were certain bosses that you'd get kind of low, but.
So you didn't even die in this
manageable.
game? No. A few times. That's the thing. If you go the wrong pattern on the, what do they call that? The dragon, not gauge, in the circle in the middle with as you said, the quadrants in north, south, east, west.
Right.
They have a name for it. If you do go the wrong path just 2 or 3 times, you can die. I mean, you can die. Right. If you accidentally push the wrong direction, because you got to get a feel of like, oh yeah, that's right. Pushing that means he's going to go this way or whatever.
Oh, I think it's because you got to think of it as clockwise. Mm. So if you're hitting right, you're going to go counterclockwise. If you're hitting left, you go clockwise. I think that's what my brain is telling me. I could be wrong, but
no, I think you're right. It's just, but just sometimes you're playing the game and you just, for whatever reason, it just, whoops. So
nope,
I got caught a couple of times.
Cards.
I think 2 times, 3 times. I don't know. I just was not paying attention and got caught. So, but the defense, as you said, it's all right. It's a really interesting looking dragon. It's
what I didn't even do it to the point of like 3 bars. What is that even?
It just much stronger defense. It's already strong defense, but it takes even less damage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know there was the thing that you could, because I remember reading that the whole script for it, because you can read how that stuff works when they present it to you.
Right.
And I remember reading it, and I was like, if enemies are really starting to hanker down on me, then yeah, but I never really felt that endangered about it. So I was like, okay.
It might even just deflect some weaker attacks to 0. Possibly. I don't recall. I didn't use it enough. All right, quick score?
I'd give it a 1.
Oh, that bad?
Well, because I never used it. I never used it. I don't really...
Spiritual.
I never used it. I didn't really care for the color. I like the spiritual colors, at least. I kind of like
spiritual colors are good.
The aqua green kind of thing. Aquamarine. So I like those colors. This is more subdued and stuff. And it's just
a lot more yellows and stuff.
I mean, I don't mind yellow.
It's a funky looking dragon, too. It's very different style.
Yeah, it just did not. Sorry, defense.
Here's the linebacker dragon. Well, yeah, this is pretty stock. Okay, I'm not going to go that bad. I'm going to go maybe just 4, but one's pretty brutal. All right, the attack.
But that also takes away from your agility. So
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And the attack one.
The attack.
It's all about attack. Bang bang.
I like the huge sort of horn that it's like.
Yeah, I mean it's
tiny. It's pretty big, on the normal dragon.
Like twice as big.
It's almost the length of the dragon alone. It's huge.
I think it's got to be longer than that or something. I mean,
it looks pretty cool.
The balance one, it looks pretty legit, but then with the attack, it seriously looks
that
like
dragon's neck would have snapped.
Make like a shish kebab with this sort of thing. You're just going to skewer anybody who comes near, kind of thing. It's all about stomping enemies, so that's what the attack's about. And it's like that reds are like
a lot of reds and sort of like the agility, the reds and purples. A little bit of greenish probably from the defense, because it's sort of up in that area depending which way you push the dial thing too.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's I enjoy it just because it helps kind of tackle things down and whatnot. So I would give it probably put it at that like 7.5, 8 range.
Okay, yeah, me too. I'm gonna say 8. It's pretty damn useful, especially in combo with the agility. They almost just, I don't know if the developers did it on purpose for players to do, but once you figure that out and you know how to manage that sort of dragon that's in the attack agility, you're money. It's pretty hard to beat a dragon like that. As I said, unless the player has a fault and puts the dragon into a danger zone by accident. But even then, you could probably still survive an attack or 2 and get out of it, kind of. All right, fair enough. Okay, why don't we move on to just last bits here? What about the music, maybe a little briefly here?
Music was pretty good. I really like the Secret Hideout music.
Yeah.
I for the soundtrack for the whole game, I'm not quite sure what to. I don't know what to
make of it.
Label it. Yeah. Right, because I like some of it, but a lot of it isn't. A lot of it isn't really your typical RPG music.
Yeah.
It feels like it doesn't quite feel like this grandioso, here's a boss battle, but it's going to be super epic because of the super music or something.
Right.
But here's a boss battle, here's some music to kind of make you think. This is going to be some trouble. Yeah. So,
I like the main theme.
Yeah, the main theme's not bad. I don't know, like it didn't, just because the RPG title of it, I was kind of expecting a bit more of the grandioso stuff. So to me, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, it's not terrible, but that's kind of how I felt with it. Because there's times where you don't even really have music.
Mm.
And it's just kind of this almost, it feels silent, but it's like this really low ambient stuff.
Right. Sort of under Uru, sort of like that.
Yeah, and so sometimes you just kind of like, I wish there was music.
No, I mean, there is music. It's just not very potent. That's not really the word I want, but it's just not really strong. I still think, as a whole, the soundtrack is still pretty good. The soundtrack itself goes for quite a bit of money online. Apparently, that's got an extremely low print run as well. Hundreds of dollars at times. I guess it goes for. I don't know how many discs it is, but yeah, I like the music a lot, but it's certainly something I have to be in the mood for. It's not something I can just slap on at any time. There's lots of music I really enjoy from the game, though, and it's sort of interesting that when you're saying that you have a certain expectation of what RPG music should be like, a certain strength of it, and the first two games, which are shooters, use this kind of music too, which is a really interesting vibe for that sort of realm. You don't kind of get what you get from this game in those kind of games typically. I know it's probably not making a lot of sense, but it's just a little more, it's not just that, dee, 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 like some sort of, really get you in the mood. It's much more like a calming type sounds and stuff. So some of it's, in your face a little bit, but not really, really strong. So as a whole, though, I do like the music a lot. It's something I wish I could get the soundtrack, not once again, just to hold it, be like, I'm going to sell for $300. No, just it would be an interesting soundtrack to hold on to because it is something that you have to be in a specific mood for, and most of the music I buy is like that. And I only buy pretty much a little bit of game music, so it'd be nice to, here I got a Mega Man CD. That's very different than this. Just a big variety would be an interesting piece to have. So, yeah. All right. Well, I didn't have too horribly much left to cover. Is there something you still wanted to touch on?
The ending.
Okay. And this is going to tie back to the story, obviously.
Right. Well, because, the ending. So it's kind of like there's two endings.
Okay.
No?
I was gonna say no, but okay. I actually want to hear what you have to say, so.
Well, I mean, in the sense that there's an ending for Edge and then there's an ending for Zell.
Okay. We could argue that there's still not really an ending, in a way, but.
Well, I mean, in the sense of, it has to end, because it's the game.
Well, sure, the game has to end, but.
Right, so the ending for the game.
And the fanfic begins.
Right. And so, but this is also because it's the only game I've played of anything about it. So
let me tell you, the games, as I said, have very little connection. So Edge does not appear in anything else.
Right.
Azelle, kind of, not really, but really oddly, the end of Orda, when you finish it, there are really weird callbacks to Saga. You'll be reading the credits, and then suddenly it'll just say Gash. And then it'll be, credit, and it's like, blah, 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 Azelle. It's really weird. This is something that, again, I don't know. There's something about the Panzer series that I guess it's just probably the team just sort of giving little, hints or jokes, I guess, about the series, because they've worked on it for so long, or what, or just little tidbits to feed fans kind of thing. But this happens, like, you'll look at one game, like, what the hell does it say Edge, or why does it say, it just adds to the mystery in a lot of ways, which I actually really, really like. It's really interesting.
They show the endings because these two don't end, like, how they don't end together kind of thing.
Right.
So they first showed the Edge bit after you beat the final boss.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the name. Once again, we're not really
Sestrin.
hiding anything there. Sestrin, which is essentially the life force of the towers and of the I don't want to say what's left of the ancients, but sort of what's left of their
the residual
energy source, sort of, or what would have you, where the dragons come from, though, basically.
And so I'll be honest, I laughed because I thought it was so stupid.
The ending?
For Edge. Because it breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And to me, I find it works really well with comedy. For comedic purposes. I think the break of the fourth wall is really funny. Don Quixote's a great example of that. It kind of breaks the fourth wall a lot, especially in the sequels and stuff. But, I mean, to me it just seemed so corny. I mean, I don't know how you felt about it, because it's just kind of like, basically the Edge is like the avatar of you. Right. Or something, or kind of thing. And you're just like, this is,
I don't agree at all with you. So,
I think that's just my perception of breaking the fourth.
Well, sure, I agree. I think typically breaking the fourth wall is a comedic thing. It doesn't. I don't want to say it doesn't happen, obviously, but it seems like it's a lot more rare when it is something that's taken seriously. It's much more used, for comedic purposes. Somebody knows they're in a movie, or somebody knows they're in a comic book, or somebody knows they're in whatever. And so they're speaking to you, quote unquote, you directly. I think my reasoning is that at the start of the game, they don't really tell you shit. You just see this weird background with floating white snowballs or whatever the hell is it. This is what happens. The game basically starts and it's like, enter your name, and you're like, what the hell? And then you play the whole game and you don't even hear your name once. It's like, what did I enter my name for? It's like, okay, I get it. I entered my name for my save file. Okay, fine. And then they call back to that at the end of the game. Now, I get it. I see what you mean when you're saying it's so cheesy. But
to me, it was really cheesy.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the acknowledgement that and he's like, you are the guide, right? You are the guide of me.
Right.
And lots of games imply that. Look, Chrono Trigger implies that, or Breath of Fire implies that.
Right.
So,
and it's cheesy to me. I mean,
but they don't ever just actually say it though either, right? They never just say, "Oh, you are Ryu is you," or whatever, or Solid Snake is you, or whatever the character is, right? They don't just come out and say it. So again, I can see why you think it's cheesy, but to me, no other games really do it. So I'm not saying, "Oh wow, what an amazing artistic move" or something. I'm not saying that. Just I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting." That they sort of had that the developers wanted to have this random acknowledgement to you of saying like, oh, sort of like, thanks for playing our game in a way. And we don't know Edge's final, I don't know, just what is his final destination, or what is his final.
I think from what I can tell, I would imagine that he gets like absorbed into the system or something.
That seems to be what happens. And I mean, that could be the callback to where was his family? Well, maybe he had no family. Maybe he actually wasn't even a human.
Yeah. And the thing is there's certain things that I like leading up to like the whole thing with Gash kind of wanting to take out the towers and explaining that, you had mentioned to me before that it might have a little bit of a thinking vibe to it, because they are bringing philosophies into it. You actually, Gash does seem like a actual character, like an actual thing, instead of just being a cardboard cutout, being paraded as a character. And, he's going on about how this shit's gotta stop because people need to be able to kind of live freely.
Right, take charge of their own destiny.
Right, sort of thing, and not have to deal with these damn things causing havoc and chaos and all that sort of thing. Like, I was fine with that. I was totally fine with that. But then, to me, it really just kinda, to me, as I said before, it's just really corny to kind of be like, breaking the fourth wall with that. And I was just like, I don't like it. Because here you have this whole cool little world and everything, and they've built up this whole thing just being very different environment and everything, and all of a sudden we're going to acknowledge that you're playing a game, and it really just takes you out of it. And you're just like, that, I hated that. I really disliked that. And as much as I disliked that, I did not mind what they did with the Zell, because after that, it switches back to this.
Hold on, you missed Gash. You were talking about Gash.
What do you mean?
Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
I mean earlier in the game. and stuff. You know, he's talking about his whole thing. And then, you know, afterwards, after Edge's little bit, it switches the language back. The language goes back to this unknown thing, which I thought was kind of cool in that regard because, you know, okay, I see why it broke the fourth wall to do that. You could have just not even said that. You could have just, you know, not had that in there, acknowledge it, and just have this subtlety, because when you ham-fist it like that, I hate it. And it goes back to this language, and then Gash is talking, and he's like, where's Edge?
Right. Well, he said, you know, promise me you'll meet me where we first met, and you get a little weird sort of thing go on, but you hear the dragon wings seemingly flap, and he looks up, nothing's there, so.
And he's just, so he kind of gets cold-shouldered.
Well, I don't think that was on purpose.
Right. No, I know.
He gets a little dejected.
Right, he's like, well, thanks, Dick. Yeah,
Going off, living your life in the Cestern there.
Right. And then you get this other bit with Azelle.
Right.
And so the whole thing I was talking about, that merchant that's talking to her.
Yep.
Is the worst voice actor in the whole damn game.
But he only says maybe 3 lines or something.
He says enough to be like, Jesus Christ, that's really bad. And I mean, I don't want to sound like a dick about it, but like he sounds, in a way, if he was speaking a foreign language, you know, that language to her, but that wasn't his native tongue, I could kind of be like, okay, because that's what it really said. It sounded like somebody who didn't know how to speak that language was trying to speak it. And
we haven't sort of decided if we think that's a fake language, have we?
I think it is.
Briefly talked about, yeah, right. So,
but I could be wrong. I mean, but I could have swore it was just some
seems
sort of
to be a made language,
right? But even still, at least in the beginning of the game, the people who were doing that sounded legit. Like it sounded like it was an actual, you know, some sort of language, and maybe it's some sort of combination of a few different languages together to make it sound. Because I knew they do that sometimes with songs and stuff in Japan and whatnot. But that ending, that merchant, you're just kind of like, dude, shut up. Just please shut up. Because it's cool, because she's trying to look for Edge, and that makes sense.
Sure.
Trying to find him. And he's going on about there's, you know, a whole bunch of desert. Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. Just kind of hang out, chill with us.
Give up on your friend kind of thing.
Right. And she's like, no.
But she didn't even say anything, I think, right? She didn't.
Well,
no, she didn't even say a single line.
Right, and then she's just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and he's like, okay, all right. And I didn't mind that so much. So, and it's just kind of, but yeah, the Edge thing really spooged.
That's fine. I don't agree, but that's fine. It's good because we usually agree on too much. So, yeah, I once again, I think I see what you're saying, how it can pull a player out of the game and stuff. To me, it was probably meant to be a bit of a thank you, because people who probably did buy Saga, at least initially, were people that probably bought the first 2 games, likely, or at least one of the 2, or at least had played the other 2, or one of them. So I think that was probably now, again, you think it's cheesy, that's fine, but that's what they wanted to do, and that's what they did. So you don't get it often in games. I personally didn't have a huge problem with it. I can see where you're coming from, though.
I understand it's a bit of a big thing for me to latch on, but I was just like,
so you're saying you would enjoy the ending, though, like if Edge had, cause he's talking to Cestern, before he does that. Or at least he's mentioning stuff, right? And then, so if he just sort of had cut that, it's literally 5 seconds or something. I don't know. It's not very long. So if they had just cut out that little blip, you would have enjoyed the ending a lot more?
Well, cause they go into you gotta cut out that whole dialogue, cause it's more than just 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So you gotta cut out that, you're trying, I don't know, just don't fucking acknowledge that that the player is the one. I mean, I know cause I'm fucking playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need you. If you want to tell me thank you, say thanks for playing. That to me is fine. I don't.
You're taking it really harshly, man. I'm not taking it at all like that.
Well, but it's to me that's just such a, like, it pisses me off because you have so much put into it with making this world and stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, let's pull you out real quick. And that to me is just, it ruins a lot of it. And I know it's just one thing, but I spent a lot of, 20, 25 hours making sure I got everything and, spending that time, and then all of a sudden to kind of be ripped out of it with that sort of thing. I was just kind of like, why are you doing that? It's just and I know it's kind of a weird way to end on this and stuff, but I mean, I know you really, really like the game, and part of it is also, I have no other connection to the series, so I don't know of any other, I never grew up hearing much about it. I never played any of the other games. So this is just like a completely different thing for me. And while I liked it at first, it felt like it started to drag quite a bit at certain points, particularly when you're playing the game, because I actually liked it when you were talking with Gash, or, when you finally encountered Kramen to get revenge and stuff. I like those interactions, but then just playing the game, it started to really wear on me.
I don't have any connections growing up with this series actually either. This was the first game I played in the series actually. Mm. So I don't know if that's an argument that I can even make for or against, because this is the first one I played in the series too. Mm. But yeah, it is what it is.
Right. Well, I mean, I was just say you really like it. So
yeah, no, I for the most part I like it, and it's not even a case of, I spent X amount of dollars, I have to force myself to like it, or it's got nothing to do with that. I legitimately enjoy the game, and I am disappointed that people can't play it if they would like to try it, and for a reasonable amount of money. Yeah, certainly someone could go out and spend a bunch of money to try it, but that's just, to me, I don't ever expect anybody to do that sort of thing. So it's just unfortunate we can't somehow get the $10 download of the game or whatnot. So it's just seemingly not going to happen. Mm. Even if Sega wanted to happen, they probably wouldn't do it, because they don't seem too interested in delving into Saturn titles for some reason.
Right.
They seem to be on this sort of, well, we know people have nostalgia for the Genesis, and we know people have nostalgia for the Dreamcast, but we don't really care about the Master System or the Saturn very much. I don't know why. I think Saturn's probably partly the programming issue.
Yeah, I think OS, some
right. I think it's hard for them to sort of get a decent emulator going for it. So I think that's probably partly it. Who knows? Maybe they've lost lots of code from the Saturn, for all we know. So yeah.
I was gonna say, and that to me is the really unfortunate thing, is that you have this game, which for a lot of people, I'm in a very small bandwagon. There's probably only about 5 of us that really aren't. I know that it's kind of out of blue, but I mean, you can totally read probably plenty of reviews of everybody who played the game back then, and even now, that are like, this is an incredible game, and they list their reasons why. Like I said before, I really think the setting is cool. I think the setting's really cool. I don't mind. I actually like a few of the characters. I just, for whatever reason, the game itself, playing it, just really,
it let Taylor down.
It I don't want to say it let me down, but it wore me down. It wore me down, and that ending, outside of the Edge ending, if they would have just truncated the whole Edge thing and then just went to, that's I guess, if they're gonna alter it to where I would have been totally cool
just
with it.
Have Edge finish off Sestrin and then just simply enter it, kind of thing.
Right, or something, so that you
can just pretend. You can just turn off the volume and turn away from it.
I could, or just not even look or something. And I know that sounds so trite, but in the same hand,
it's what you hate. It's what you hate, man.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, I don't agree with you. I personally find it's fine, and I think one of my biggest reasons is that other games don't do it, and I didn't find it to be super cheesy in this regard. Simply because of the initial connection at the beginning of the game. If it was just suddenly out of the complete blue, and for you you're saying it was, but for me it wasn't, because I instantly, as that happened, I was like, oh, that's right. Because the imagery was exactly the start when you put in your name. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right, I did do that, because I kind of forgot about it, because that didn't seem to make any sense. But they were trying to draw back to that. And I can understand why you think it's stupid. That's fine. But for me, I was like, oh, okay, I don't mind that. It's okay. But yeah, I think with the review thing, I can't really speak for people, but whatever. What do you think? Do you think some people say they really like the game, but just to justify the purchase?
I kind of thought about that. I hope that's not the case.
I mean, I hope so too, but
it might. I cannot say for other people.
Sure.
There might be some sort of bias towards that.
Sure.
I know that we have that in us to think that, okay, this is, this game, for some people, they buy a game for $5 and it's the most amazing thing. Well, they only put a $5 purchase, and maybe for them $5 isn't very significant. But for somebody who bought the game for, say, $50, maybe $50 is significant to them for one reason or the other, and it didn't live up to the worth of what $50 meant in their life at that time. And so to them, it's a horrid piece of garbage and whatnot, or whatever. They just, there's a very fluctuating.
Horrid. I just like that word.
Horrid. There's just a very fluctuating scale of opinion on it, kind of thing. And I mean, it is a ton of money for that sort. It's like what was last time?
I don't know. I think you and I saw something like 500, some just way too much money, basically.
And so that sort of thing. I would feel like people would be a bit more inclined to like it. Either that spectrum. Oh, right, they'll force themselves to like it, or because of the money involved in everything, they're just on the whole other swing of the pendulum and are just like, goddamn this game. But you don't get that a lot. You don't, I don't see that a lot.
You're right. I mean, typically I don't see people just saying, yeah, look at this showpiece I got. I mean, but at the same point, I don't, if people are talking about games in their collection, they'll be like, oh, I have this game. And again, maybe they haven't played it in a long time or whatever, but I don't really feel this sort of, and if you play lots of games, I guess if you have a huge collection, you might forget stuff, I suppose. But I don't feel a really strong connection, I guess. I can't imagine a lot of people, quote unquote, grew up with this game. So I think the nostalgia for it is not really there in most regards. So I don't know what the sort of love for the game where it really comes from.
Well, I mean, people just like it, and
people just like it, but
I could totally, like I said, I'm probably one of those in those kind of small minority that just, at least from what I've seen, there could be totally a whole branch of the internet that I've not seen.
You
that
might be a little more critical of yourself than you really are. It sounds like you don't absolutely want to just trash it or whatever, but.
Well, like I said, I initially liked it a lot at first, but then didn't by the end of it, so.
I'll send you my homemade Gash statue.
Okay, cool.
We didn't touch upon why he's got no hand, or got a robotic hand, or got a shirt for a hand, or.
A shirt for a...
Well, he's got
it's all the style, baby.
He's got like a tear in his shirt, and he seems to have a hand, because he bumps fists with Edge a few times and stuff, or he's got a stump at least, or something, I don't know. Interesting design there, too. Alright, let's get off this. We're just going to sit here all day and keep talking about this.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Alright, so it sounds like then, for the most part, you're probably not really going to recommend this game. Is that a fair assumption?
It's the pricing issue. Like let's say if the pricing was no issue. If the pricing was no issue, I would still say people give it a shot, because obviously I'm really hankered on certain parts of it irritating the hell out of me for one reason or another. That a lot of people don't seem to have a problem with. So I would still say give it a go, because I mean, instead of being like me and liking it first and hating it, you might
hate it at first and then like it.
Or, you might like it at first and then like it even more as it progresses, or kind of staying
People
at the same
different.
level of like, yep. So.
If money was not an issue here, if you could get a copy for a reasonable price, I would recommend it. I don't know if everyone would play it and like it. It is an older game now, so I think part of the problem is that for some people, if they want to spend the money, it's been built up way too much. You might be thinking, oh, it's some super life-changing. No, it's not some life-changing experience or whatever you might think it might be. Unfortunately, it's just an expensive showpiece almost now at this point. It's still a good game. I love this game. I really like this game, and I wish other people play it, but it's sort of just become a trade commodity, which is really unfortunate. But it's kind of the route that it's gone. So if you can get it for whatever price you feel comfortable paying, I would probably recommend the game. No judgment. If you want to pay $500, that's up to you. So I personally would not necessarily recommend that.
No, not.
Yeah. For most things, I would not recommend for $500. So.
Right.
Unless you need it for some reason, you don't need this game. But unless you're trying to fill out your Saturn collection, I don't know. But yeah, once again, I like the game. Taylor's one of these days, Taylor and I will 1000% agree on something. Probably not, but anyways, let's wrap it up, Taylor. What do you got last to say there?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Okay, you should end with another one of those snot, things, because you started off. There you go. That's a good way to end, because that's how you started. So let's come back full circle. The 5 dragon attribute circle. So, all right. So for Taylor, Murugata553, and for myself, Sushi B, we hope you enjoyed our look at Panzer Dragoon Saga. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.